Hello, in this video we're going to talk about iteration and the role they're playing when you're building, editing and saving Fractal Flame. So first, when you create a Fractal Flame, a FLAM3H node, it comes with the Sierpinski triangle as a default. And when you're looking at it from this view, 10 iterations are perfect. However, if you were about to go closer, just because you want to generate this part and render it, if you're adding a little bit more of point, let's say 5 million, we can see the result start to get a little jagged. And that's because we don't have enough iteration to resolve those shapes. If you were about to go and set this to 16, we can see the result is much better. And so, however, if we were to go back to the faraway view, like this, 16 iteration might be really too much. And so maybe 12 is more than enough, or even 10 if no one know, you know what I mean? They would be perfect. So every time you work and you are editing and building a Fractal Flame, just try out different iteration and see which one fit best for the Fractal Flame you're working on. So now let's load one of the Fractal Flame we did previously in one of the tutorial. In this case, I'm gonna load the Looney one. And let's set point count a little higher. And this one is the result we decided to settle. And we decided back then in the tutorial to set the iteration to 16. The reason why we did that is because if we were about to go close and set this to 10, we will see there are some artifacts. Let's set this to more, 50 million. We will see there are some artifacts. So if you were about to go and render this this image for a high resolution, let's say 2K or 4K, you definitely don't want to use 10 iteration, but you will want to go higher in order to resolve those shapes better. And 16 iteration actually does the trick. Okay, so once you test and decide that this amount of iteration is good enough, you can go to the Out tab and let's create a new file. Let's call it flame test. Okay, and it will add the .flame extension automatically. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to give the flame a name. It's not mandatory, but in this video we will do an example with and without the name. So let's add a name and let's call it Looney. And we see it's adding 16 iteration to the name. And so this colon will tell FLAM3H when you're loading it back to use whatever number is after those two columns and use it to load with this specific amount of number. So now you can change the iteration here while you're making tests, and this number will actually update as well. So let's go back to 16 and let's save it. And this will create this flame, this file, and it will append this flame into this file. Okay, so now let's go and get a different palette so we can save a new flame and know that we are loading a different flame. And now let's go back to the out and let's save a flame without giving it a name. And when we do that, FLAM3H will actually generate an automatic name that is composed of today's date and time. And obviously we'll add the 16 iteration to the name. Okay, so now here in the out option, we have this option which is on by default, which is auto add iter num to flame name, which is responsible to actually adding this name to the flame name you are deciding. So if you are about to save another one, let's say test, and let's change color again, something like this. Maybe let's try another one. This one is cool too. So if you uncheck this option, it will actually remove the iteration number from the name. So now you can type anything you want and you won't actually autocorrect. If you activate, it will add that back. If you uncheck, it will remove it. And so let's save this flame with this name. So now we have this file which has 3 flames inside. One is Looney, one is flame with the automatic name generated, and one is a test with a test name without the iteration num added to the flame name. So now we go back to the in tab and reset, and let's load this. And we can see it got loaded with 10 iterations. So let's go back to the default, which is 10. And when we load one of those flame, FLAM3H will set the iteration number to this number, which is baked inside the flame name. And so then we have this one, which we save with the automatic name, still with 16 iteration. And then as last, we got test, which doesn't have the iteration number baked into the name. And so if we load this one now, FLAM3H will set automatically the iteration to 64, which sounds like from all my tests, it is a fair number to resolve most of them fairly quick. And when, for example, you're using Fractorion to edit your fractal flame and then you want to load them back inside FLAM3H, in Fractorion you won't have this option to add the iteration number to it. And so the fact that it's setting this to 64 is just trying to resolve them good enough in order to load them. However, sometimes some flame can take quite a long time to load, depending on how they are constructed, how many iterator, what kind of variation you are using. And so sometimes you want to be quick and you don't want to use 64 iteration every time you are loading one, just to check what they look like. And so you got this option, which is force iteration on load, which will allow you to change the default 64 iteration used to load a flame. So if we were about to reset and set this to 12, and let's go to 7, so we know that it will be a low number. If we were about to now to reload this test, instead of 64, it will use 7 iteration, okay? However, now if we go back and load one, which has the iteration name baked into the name, that iteration in the name will actually override the force iteration on load, and this one will get loaded with 16 iteration. If you want to override that, you have to check this one and also check this one, override iteration from flame name, and this one will override that one and set this to 10 instead of 16.